What if Anakin Skywalker received a golden Kyber crystal on Ilum? Let's start the story a year into Anakin's apprenticeship. His time had come. Anakin had learned a lot in his first year as a Jedi Padawan, and his master Obi-Wan took him to the ancient Jedi world of Ilum, where all Jedi students of the Force would go to get their Kyber crystals. Anakin and Obi-Wan stood at the entrance of the Ilum cave as Kenobi turns to Anakin, telling him the cave will test him, that it will reveal what lies within and does not make the path easy. But trust in the Force and he will find what he needs. Anakin nodded and with a final glance at his master, stepped forward into the darkness. The temperature dropped instantly and the silence swallowed him whole. He took slow steps, his breath clouding in front of him as he navigated the crystalline corridors. His heartbeat quickened. He had to find his Kyber crystal, but the cave would not simply give it to him. A sharp crack echoed through the cavern, and suddenly, the ice beneath Anakin's feet fractured. He gasped as the ground gave way, sending him plunging into the depths below. He landed with a grunt, wincing as he pushed himself up. The chamber he had fallen into was vast, the walls reflecting thousands of fractured images of himself. Each reflection moved independently, some mirroring his movements, others staring back with an eerie stillness. But then, the reflections changed. One image showed him in dark-clad robes, his eyes burning yellow, his hand outstretched in a commanding grip. Another displayed him older, standing over countless fallen Jedi, a red lightsaber ignited in his grasp. A third image revealed a moment of peace, Anakin surrounded by his family, laughter filling the air and love in his heart. His chest tightened. Visions. The cave was forcing him to confront the future, the choices that he had yet to make. No, he muttered, this can't be real. But the reflections only grew more intense. His darker self stepped forward.
You will know power beyond your wildest dreams. The Jedi hold you back. You were meant for more.
Anakin clenched his fists, screaming back that he's a Jedi. The other vision of Anakin spoke next, the one filled with warmth and peace.
You will struggle, you will suffer, but you will bring balance. You must choose correctly.
The cave trembled, and the reflections shattered, the shards spiraling into the air. In the center of the chamber, where the light of the cave converged, a single Kyber crystal rested upon a pedestal of ancient ice. It radiated a warm golden glow, unlike any Kyber crystal Anakin had ever seen. He stepped forward as his fingers brushed the crystal. A wave of warmth surged through him. It wasn't just energy, it was purpose. The cave pulsed around him, whispering of balance, of destiny. As he lifted it into his palm, the chamber seemed to sigh, and the test was complete. The way back revealed itself, an illuminated path leading him out of the cave. He had found his crystal, but more than that, he had glimpsed his future and the choices that he would no doubt face. Emerging from the cave, he met Obi-Wan's gaze and presented his crystal to him. His master's eyes widened. He could not believe it. The existence of a golden Kyber crystal was that of myth, rumor, and folklore. No one had ever seen one before in history. Its rarity mimics that of the Kyber inside the darksaber, and the prophecy foretold that the one who wielded the golden Kyber would stand at the crossroads of fate, with the power to either bring the Force into perfect harmony or cast it into chaos. Anakin's eyes were wide-locked as Kenobi told him this. For the first time, the Force had spoken to Anakin in a way that he could not ignore. And though he did not fully understand it yet, he knew one thing. His journey had just begun. On their way back to Coruscant from Ilum, Anakin constructs his lightsaber. He carefully manipulated his parts together with the Force, and the final completion was symbolized by the addition of the golden Kyber. Obi-Wan stood by his side as Anakin ignited the blade for the first time. A rich gold, a more vibrant color than Anakin had ever seen before. Obi-Wan was astounded. This was clear confirmation that his master was right. Qui-Gon believed Anakin was the chosen one, and with the golden blade, there was no doubt this is the truth. Before we start, at Fantasy Sabers, we're launching the Chosen One affordable version. This is almost an identical replica of the Chosen One saber with just a few tweaks, but it's still packing all of its power and glory. And to celebrate, for the first 2 weeks of its launch, we're giving away one for free with every saber order. Just choose your saber, add it to the cart to claim your free saber. Don't miss out on this limited time only sale. Now back to the video. They arrived back at the Jedi Temple, and instantly rushed to the council chambers. In the previous timeline, Anakin was treated like a normal Jedi and didn't get any special privileges. However, after the council saw the golden blade that Anakin had brought back from Ilum, most of them now were aligned in their views. Qui-Gon was right. The boy was the chosen one, destined to bring balance to the Force. There was no denying it. Over the following weeks, Anakin's training would be taken to a whole new level. He would get individual lessons from every council member. However, he demanded that he was still an apprentice to Obi-Wan, an attachment that could not be broken. Anakin started learning unique things from every member. He started with Shakti, who taught Anakin patience, precision, and the importance of fluid movements in combat. Through rigorous duels and meditation, she would push him to anticipate his opponent's moves rather than overpowering them, reinforcing the Jedi philosophy that strength without balance will lead to ruin. Next, Yoda focused on the mastery of the Force itself. Anakin learned that true power does not come from dominance, but from harmony with the Force. Yoda pushed Anakin to let go of his frustration, emphasizing that fear and attachment cloud one's judgment. In lightsaber training, Yoda's nimble mastery of Form 4 would force Anakin to rely on strategy rather than strength, teaching him that even the strongest warriors can be outmatched by wisdom and control. His lessons with Windu were a brutal test of Anakin's skill and discipline. He pushed Anakin to his absolute limit, and he would challenge Anakin's reliance on raw power, demanding refinement, precision, and awareness of surroundings. Beyond combat, Windu would lecture Anakin on the dangers of arrogance, warning that true mastery comes not from strength alone, but from control over one's inner darkness. Throughout his time, he and Obi-Wan continued to train together, preferring to spend time with him rather than the council members. Anakin saw Obi-Wan like the older brother he never had, and he was his last connection to his first master Qui-Gon, and ultimately his mother back on Tatooine. His lessons with Obi-Wan were less strict and more entertaining than those with the other masters, and their bond continued to strengthen. However, during this time, Palpatine started his moves on Anakin. The Jedi were under the jurisdiction of the Senate, and therefore the Chancellor, and couldn't deny Palpatine's request for private sessions with the boy. Through this, their relationship blossomed, Palpatine attempting to plant the subtle seeds of manipulation in the boy, and essentially compete with Obi-Wan for his favor. In this timeline, since Anakin was being trained directly by the Council, rather than solely Obi-Wan, who in the original timeline had only just become a Jedi Knight, his power would skyrocket, and his mastery of the Force grew at an exponential rate, just like his skills with a lightsaber. However, with Palpatine still close by to manipulate the boy, Anakin's fate was as good as sealed. However, everything changed one night when Obi-Wan was asleep. To Kenobi, he thought it was a dream, but it wouldn't be years later until he realized what he was seeing was the real thing. In his dream, he was visited by the Force ghost of his deceased master, Qui-Gon Jinn. Qui-Gon asks Obi-Wan whether he thinks he was right now that Anakin is the chosen one. Obi-Wan agrees and tells his master that Qui-Gon's dream for Anakin will become true. With the Council's training, he will become the chosen one. But Qui-Gon tells Obi-Wan that this is not the case, that in the chosen one's prophecy, it doesn't state anywhere about Anakin needing to be a Jedi to be the chosen one, that he believed Anakin being trained as a Jedi would be for the best, but without himself there to guide him, he fears darkness will still reach the boy, that if he remains as a Jedi, his future is uncertain. Obi-Wan asks his master what all of this means, who asks Obi-Wan to leave the Jedi with Anakin and train him in the ways of the Force away from the Jedi. Obi-Wan woke the next morning, thinking of his so-called dream. Something had changed within him, and he started to consider what Qui-Gon had told him. Should he follow his beliefs? Should he leave the Jedi Order? These questions circled in his mind as he came to the conclusion to follow the beliefs of his master Qui-Gon. Later that day, he brings this up with Anakin, asking if he's satisfied with his life in the Jedi Order, who at this stage is 12 years old, having trained for a couple of years. He tells Obi-Wan that he's happy, that he enjoys his life as a Jedi, but he misses his mother and feels immense guilt about leaving her behind as a slave. Obi-Wan brings up the possibility of leaving the Order together, saving his mother from slavery and learning more about the Force and the wider galaxy. Anakin's eyes went wide. He couldn't believe what Obi-Wan was saying and asked him why now. Kenobi was honest and told Anakin about the dream he had of Qui-Gon and feels that his master's voice was the Force guiding his path and believes this is the next step in Anakin's training. Skywalker agreed, and together, they both formally left the Jedi Order. The Council tried desperately to stop them, but there was nothing they could do. They begged Obi-Wan for him and Anakin to stay, that they have to keep the Chosen One close to protect him from any danger he could face until he was ready. But they were unpersuadable, and they ventured off to Tatooine. Palpatine was astonished by this. He had never considered that Obi-Wan would leave the Jedi Order and take Anakin with him. He can't lose his grip on the Chosen One, and sends his spies to follow them so he can know where they're going. Together, Master and Apprentice go to Tatooine, where they find Shmi, but not as a slave, but a free woman with her new husband and family, the Lars. Anakin felt tremendous joy seeing his mother again. Together, he and Obi-Wan spend a week on their farm, Obi-Wan letting Anakin enjoy the time with his mother, whilst he plans their future ahead. During this time, he makes contact with an old friend, Duchess Satine of Mandalore, and tells her of their situation, and she allows for them to come and live on Mandalore. Obi-Wan brings up the proposition with Shmi and the Lars, and they couldn't be more in agreement. Finally, they can get off Tatooine. They arrive on Mandalore, and are set up in their new home in the capital city. Unlike anything the Lars or Shmi had experienced before, they spend the next few years there, Anakin spending time with his family and Obi-Wan. He and Obi-Wan continued his training, teaching Anakin to use the Force, but didn't implement much about the Jedi Code. Obi-Wan and Satine rekindle their relationship slowly over the first 2 months of him being there, and together, they are all incorporated into Mandalorian society. Due to Anakin's age, he does spend some time in school and make some friends of his own, whilst learning about Mandalore's history of warfare, and starts to think about how he can incorporate it into his training. After a couple of years, when Anakin's training has reached a sufficient level, he and Obi-Wan begin their adventures around the galaxy. They attempt to carry out the true purpose of what a Jedi should be, helping villagers in need, settling disputes between planets outside of Republic jurisdiction, and help in skirmishes against local crime bosses. Anakin was learning the true fundamentals of what a Jedi should be, not bound by a dogmatic code or corrupt political law. This went on for 2 years, and Shmi was extremely proud of what Anakin had achieved, helping the innocent people that she knew he was destined to, people like he and her when Anakin was just a baby. Through this, Anakin's skills in diplomacy increased, learning to work with many different types of people and harness his skills in the Force. Very little did he need to use his golden lightsaber. However, when he did, his enemies instantly knew their fate. Anakin's golden saber became a symbol of fear to those in the Outer Rim who promoted crime and other unlawful activities. Some of these adventures lasted months, and together they returned after 3 long months away and reunited with their families. Duchess Satine announced to the planet that she and her husband Obi-Wan are having their first child. Obi-Wan was loved by the Republic, the Jedi who left the Order to follow his love and marry Satine. Although not entirely black and white as this, the public loved a good story. And alongside him was Anakin, who was widely known in Mandalorian society as a foundling, one of their own, and a great warrior, strong in the Force. Many in their society started to believe that Anakin would become the future of their people. Their history is rich with Mandalore the Great, Tar Vizsla, the first Mandalorian Jedi who had a black blade, the darksaber. Could Anakin be the modern day version, wielding a golden lightsaber to take them into the future? Only time could tell, but chatter like this continued to sparkle throughout Mandalorian society, and with Anakin's power rising and rising fast, it only increased. Meanwhile, Palpatine still has his eyes on Anakin, but now knows there is no way to pull him to his side, that he would have to be eliminated before he became a problem. He was using Dooku to fund the insurgent Mandalorian Death Watch group, who currently had control of the darksaber. Rumors of the Death Watch's slow return started to rise throughout Mandalore, as stories of their activity on adjacent worlds and moons began to spread. However, they were just that, rumors. But with Palpatine's extra funds, they were able to recruit more members, train new recruits, purchase and make new weaponry, and ultimately build up a small army. One day, whilst Obi-Wan, Satine and Anakin were on a convoy between Mandalorian worlds, they were attacked by the Death Watch group led by Pre Vizsla. They defeated all of the guards and stormed the ship with 2 goals: to kill Anakin and Satine. They advanced deeper into the hallways, but Anakin and Obi-Wan put up a proper defense, barricading themselves in and preventing the Death Watch group from advancing, with the hope of waiting for backup. They were in a stalemate, as the darksaber pierced through the wall, which was keeping them locked in, to cut out a perfect circle, as in rushed Death Watch, one by one. Anakin and Obi-Wan stood there, ready, as Kenobi engaged the Death Watch, as Anakin ignited his golden blade, and it clashed with the darksaber of Pre Vizsla. Obi-Wan put his life on the line to defend his wife, cutting down one Death Watch after another, whilst Anakin and Pre Vizsla's duel was intense. They were locked in a chaotic dance. Pre Vizsla was good with a blade, and understood the darksaber well, but Anakin was no easy challenge. Vizsla started using the extra weapons on his belt, trying to capture Anakin with his grapple, burn him with his flamethrower, but the Force proved an efficacious defense. Anakin pushed Vizsla back with the Force, who readied to attack again, but before he could, Anakin used the Force to activate one of the grenades on Vizsla's belt. He had some time to react and throw it away, but it was only half a meter away when it detonated, and sent Vizsla flying towards Anakin, who stuck his golden blade out forward, and Vizsla's body came flying directly into it, piercing the key organs in his chest. He was defeated. Anakin successfully helped Obi-Wan defeat the rest of the Death Watch, and the majority of them were arrested and the rest went into hiding. Reports of this attack started to spread, but what was more popular information was that Anakin Skywalker, wielder of the Golden Blade, had now won the darksaber in combat, and many in Mandalorian society started to see him as the peak of Mandalore, the savior of the new Mandalorians. Anakin took the darksaber home with him and started to think about what people were saying. The gold and the dark, like yin and yang, dark and light. He can't help but feel that getting the darksaber is his destiny, like the Force is trying to tell him something. He meditates on this further and brings this up with Obi-Wan. He questions whether their way of doing things has been right. All these years, they've strode in the light side of the Force, but that's not balance. The prophecy of the Chosen One states that he is to bring balance to the Force. So how can he do this if he only practices the light side and never touches the dark? Obi-Wan thinks on this. What Anakin is saying makes sense, but it comes with its own dangers. Kenobi asks what Anakin is proposing, who tells his master that he believes they should start learning the dark side, not for power, not for personal gain, but to control and understand it, and through this, achieve balance in the Force. Obi-Wan agrees, but on the condition that if they let it go too far, if the dark side starts changing them, then they will stop immediately. Anakin agrees, but they have one problem. Where are they going to learn the dark side from? But Satine has the answer to this question. For thousands of years, Mandalore fought either with or against the Sith, and through this rich history, obtained a collection of darkside relics and texts stored deep in the archives of their palace. Obi-Wan and Anakin begin their training in the dark side, slowly opening themselves up to their anger and fear, ensuring that they control it and turn it into power they can use. This goes on for a year, until we reach the time of the Clone War. War erupted all around the galaxy, perfectly engineered by Palpatine to turn the galaxy against the Jedi and accept him as Chancellor. Mandalore decides to stay neutral in the war, but not silent. Mandalore raises their military forces, led by Anakin and Obi-Wan, to create the neutral force of Mandalore. This was their army, but they wouldn't join the Clone War to fight the Separatists or Republic, but rather defend and help rebuild cities and towns that were devastated in the battles. Both sides were forced to accept Mandalore's new role in the war. If Palpatine forced the Separatists to fight them, it would cause trouble, and no doubt the Mandalorians were a formidable force. Their neutrality was a success, as over the first year of the Clone War, they helped save countless lives and ensure the protection of many innocent towns and cities. As the war raged on, Palpatine started to worry about Anakin. He couldn't send Dooku against them. No doubt he would perish. He had heard reports of Anakin's power and senses that something is off in the Force, and determines that it must be linked with Skywalker. Palpatine concludes that he'll have to take out Anakin in Order 66 and must manipulate the events of the war to do this. Meanwhile, the Jedi reach out to Obi-Wan and Anakin for their help in the war, but they politely decline, declaring their intentions to remain neutral. Throughout the war, Anakin's golden blade became a symbol of hope around the galaxy. His fame began to increase, and overall the Mandalore movement was popular around the galaxy. One skirmish of note was between Mandalore and the crime ring led by Maul. Maul attempted to use this to get revenge against Obi-Wan. However, he swiftly engaged Anakin in a duel and was cut down by the legendary golden saber before Maul could do any real damage. We get to the end of the Clone War, where Palpatine decides it's time to end the war. The neutral forces of Mandalore are on Umbara, with one of the largest clone battalions nearby, and Palpatine believes this should be enough to take care of Anakin and Obi-Wan. Order 66 is executed, and the death of the Jedi begins all around the galaxy. Anakin and Obi-Wan sense it as it's going on, as they can feel something was flipped in the brains of the clones, surrounded by the dark side. They instantly send a message to their forces that the clones have turned on them. They begin retreating immediately, as they're forced to fight against the clone troopers. In the distance, they can see the green and blue blades of the Jedi on the planet extinguish, and Kenobi and Anakin realize this action by the clones isn't against them, but rather all Jedi and Force users around the galaxy. They board their ships and blast their way out of the Republic blockade and into hyperspace. Anakin and Obi-Wan meditate in order to gain a deeper understanding of what's transpired. They feel the cries of Jedi all around the galaxy, with the light side diminishing, but also an epicenter of the dark side on Coruscant. They come out of the meditation and look at each other, no words needing to be spoken. They both know this is their time. The Sith have made their move, and it's time for Anakin to restore balance to the Force. They go to Coruscant as the Mandalorian forces come out of hyperspace and wait on the edge of Republic territory, whilst Anakin and Obi-Wan board a similar shuttle and travel down to the surface. They arrive at the Jedi Temple to find it in chaos. Clones are purging the Jedi, but they are fighting back. But instantly as they enter, they can sense the epicenter of the dark side of the Force that they felt during their meditation, and they head there immediately. They use the Force to increase their speeds and bypass the clones in the foyer as they enter the younglings' quarters to find none other than Count Dooku and Sheev Palpatine standing over Yoda, Fisto, and other council members' bodies, red lightsabers ignited. They turn as a wave of fear rush over them. Why is Anakin Skywalker here? The clones were meant to take him out on Umbara. No matter, he will die here. The Sith rush at them, whilst Obi-Wan ignites his blade to attack Dooku. Meanwhile, Anakin ignites his golden blade to block Palpatine's onslaught. Their battles were legendary. Anakin knew his years of training have led to this very moment, whilst Palpatine realizes that Anakin is his last obstacle for galactic control. He cannot lose. He attempts to cast lightning at Anakin, but the golden lightsaber absorbs it with ease and uses the extra energy to send Palpatine flying backwards. When their weapons clashed, Palpatine was running out of options as Anakin continued to advance forward. He pulled out the darksaber, and with this, started harnessing the dark side of the Force. Palpatine was astonished. Since when had Anakin learned the dark side? During this entire duel, had Anakin not been using his full power? With this, Anakin became faster and stronger, resulting in Palpatine no longer standing a chance in this fight. He made one last attempt, but he overreached, attempting to stab Anakin through the abdomen, but Anakin removed Palpatine's hand with a darksaber, and then his head with the golden lightsaber. Anakin turned and using the Force, held Dooku in place as Obi-Wan cut him down, and together, the two of them had successfully defeated the Sith, but their job wasn't done. They rushed to the Senate offices as Mandalorians and not Jedi to meet with the Vice Chancellor and the Republic Security Council. They explain what has transpired, that Palpatine is a Sith Lord and all this time has been working with Count Dooku and the Separatists to foster the conflict for this very moment, the extermination of the Jedi by the clones. Few in the council struggled to believe the fact, but the evidence of their bodies, as well as the security footage of them together in the temple, would be undeniable. After leaving them with this information, they left and returned to Mandalore. Whilst over the next few weeks, the Republic did investigations and came to conclusions about what had happened. Palpatine's plans were foiled as footage was retrieved of him fighting alongside Dooku, which completely discredited him. But with Dooku's defeat, the Separatists had been dealt a great blow. The Republic Security Council deemed that the execution of Order 66 was unlawful and therefore executed Order 65. However, 99% of all Jedi had already been exterminated. The war was not over, however. With Dooku's defeat, the Republic would shortly overpower the Separatists, and the leaders would be forced into a surrender. After this, the Republic would return to democracy, with Bail Organa elected as the new leader of the Republic. After this, Anakin and Obi-Wan were summoned to his office on Coruscant. The two of them had thought deeply about what their next steps were. The Jedi had been eradicated, the Sith had been defeated, and thus, with them and very few others as the only Force users left. Had balance been achieved? No, which meant there was much more to do. Organa thanked the two of them again for defeating Palpatine and stopping him before he could implement any further stages of his plan to take over the galaxy. Bail had already offered a formal apology to Jedi around the galaxy, but there was really no one to accept that. Organa tells them both that with the Jedi's defeat, the galaxy needs a new Force Order to help protect them, and offers for Anakin and Obi-Wan to take on this job, lead a new order of Force users. Anakin and Obi-Wan looked at each other. This is exactly the decision they had come up with in their minds. It was inevitable. This is the only way to ensure future balance in the Force is if they create it. They tell Organa that their new order will be different from the Jedi. They will practice both light and dark sides of the Force, won't be ordered around by the Senate, and will also act in areas of the galaxy that are not under Republic jurisdiction. Organa tells them he expects nothing less and agrees for them to come to him in a couple of weeks with a plan for their new order. Anakin and Obi-Wan return to Mandalore to spend time with their families. Whilst they do this, Kenobi was a new father with another child on the way soon, and he thought deeply about what type of Force Order he wanted to lead for his children. They come up with the principles of the Order, similar to that of the Jedi of old, where emotions will be cherished, allowed, but intense training on controlling one's emotions, especially fear and hatred. And most importantly, attachments in their order will be permitted. No longer will they be the loveless religious zealots, but transformed beings who practice as the true guardians of peace in the galaxy. These principles were accepted by Organa, and they had official jurisdiction over the Force-sensitive children in the galaxy. They set up their base of their order on the moon of Concordia for now, but knew in the future they would expand. They got their first set of Force-sensitives and began their training in the ways of their new order, the Twilight Order of the Force. Anakin would spend a lot of time on Coruscant as the representative of the Twilights in the Senate. It's here that he would be reunited with someone from his past, Senator Padme Amidala. Anakin had thought about her deeply during his time on Mandalore, and it was this thought that prevented him from engaging in any romantic relationships with anyone else, since he would constantly compare them to his memory of Padme. Padme congratulated Anakin on his new order, and thanked him again for his role in saving the galaxy. Over the following months, their relationship blossomed, until they became an official couple, and news of this shocked the entire galaxy. Anakin was extremely happy. He had everything he'd ever wanted. His mother was alive and happy, his brother Obi-Wan by his side, and his partner Padme, the future mother of his children, and he stood at the forefront of the Force, the precipice of the future, and no doubt would lead the galaxy into a prosperous future. He thinks back to his vision in the Cave of Illum, the one where he was happy, laughing around with his family and everyone he loves, and realizes that vision ended up coming true. Thank you all for watching. Don't forget to check out our insane sale over at Fantasy Sabers. Buy any saber and get a free The Chosen One Deluxe for free. Limited time only, ends 13th of March. Leave a comment about what you thought of the video with more ideas, and I'll see you all next time.